In 1986, Nintendo gave us The Legend of Zelda for the Nintendo Entertainment System. Since then, they've released titles like Zelda 2, A Link to the Past, and so many others which have been great, while others weren't so great. But compared to titles like Sonic Lost World, even the not-so-great titles look like masterpieces. As we draw close to the release of Breath of the Wild, everyone gets more and more hyped. Join us as we dive into the story in this week's episode of Beyond Breath of the Wild.
Now, what we've observed so far, Breath of the Wild looks so well put together and so beautiful, but it looks like this game will have a more dark and intense storyline than your typical Zelda game. That is this glooted Majora's Mask, of course. We'll start with the Calamity Ganon. At first, we all thought he was just a mindless beast, kinda like this guy. But more and more footage is shown, we now realize that there's probably more to him that meets the eye.
Before we go on into the video, I have to warn you that this could probably be considered as spoiler material.
Now, we all know for a fact that the Guardians were originally used in resistance against the Calamity Ganon, but that they somehow got corrupted. This revelation is thanks to Zeltic's video and the people who helped him translate the back of the map in the Master Edition from Hylian to Japanese to English.
If you want to hear more about the story of the past, click this link up here to watch Commonwealth Realms Theory. Now, is the Calamity Ganon the true and only form we will see of Ganon in Breath of the Wild? From all the footage we've seen so far, it would appear so, but in the Switch trailer for Breath of the Wild, we saw these statues in this clip with Link and Zelda that bear a striking resemblance to Ganondorf.
Is this a coincidence, or is this a reference to Ganondorf's presence in the game?
Interestingly enough, series producer Eiji Aonuma stated that Breath of the Wild will feature an alternate ending if you meet a certain criteria, but most of you probably know this by now.
We all believe that defeating all the shrines in the game has something to do with this, because by obtaining all the spirit orbs, we somehow can expose the Calamity Ganon's true form as being Ganondorf, and we have several clues to support this idea. For one, we have the Old Man, and if you've been following Commonwealth Realms coverage of Breath of the Wild, then you already know that the Old Man is most likely the King of Hyrule, or at least is somehow closely connected to the royal family. He seems to want the spirit orbs located in the shrines and will give Link the paraglider as a reward for completing the 4 shrines on the Great Plateau. What better reason for this than to reveal the true source of the Calamity Ganon's power? But there are some of you who might disagree with this, but we'll go into more details on the subject in another video, hopefully. Now, for another clue, there's gotta be something stronger controlling the beast, or at least something that used to control it. The Guardians, once corrupted, did not just randomly attack. No. And what's more is that they have a target. Link. This scene right here proves it. And even more than that, they always seem to be searching for something. Kinda like these guys? No, seriously. Doesn't this look familiar too?
So, with Link being the main target, this brings us to the next section.
Since Link is the main target, this only means one thing. That Ganon knows that he can defeat him. Which also means that, despite everyone else's opinion, the game has to take place a great number of years after Ocarina of Time. Because, 1.
The history of the royal family of Hyrule is also the history of the Calamity Ganon, a primal evil that has endured over the ages.
For 2, Ganondorf never dreamed of being defeated by Link in Ocarina of Time, which I guess also cancels out another timeline branch from Ocarina of Time.
This means that Link will need to look to more resources than himself, and that he'll need help from other characters in the game. We also think that at one point in the game, you'll have to search out Ganon's roots in Gerudo Desert.
Gerudo Desert, as you all know, is home to the Gerudo, a tribe of only women, but every 100 years a male is born and becomes their leader. What special role does Gerudo Desert have to play in the game? Coming up next, we have an interesting tidbit. With the confirmation of different seasons in the game, we come to some interesting questions. 1. Will the season system try to match up to the real world? And 2. How will it affect the story, or the gameplay for that matter? I'll try to do a video on this later, but for now I'll share one interesting detail. It would appear that the Guardians attacked in the springtime. We found that out by studying various objects and plants. For example, we have this scene with the Great Deku Tree. And then we have this one with Zelda. In the background, you can see the flowers in bloom, which is something you don't usually see in the summer. The fact that Ganon attacked in the spring just seems so emotional and heartbreaking. The season in which life is supposed to spring up is suddenly turned into the most dark and devastating moment in the history of Hyrule. This is deep. We all need to consider this when trying to put the story together. Before we wrap up, I want to add a personal note. Link was on some sort of mission before Ganon attacked, and whether or not Zelda was directly involved in it, we don't know. What we do know is that since E3 2016, we haven't seen anything of Link's hood, so it's probably just a symbol of Nintendo not revealing anything. However, we have official concept art where Link is wearing the hood, so we can't rule out the secret mission just yet. In the beginning of the video, James Yvonne made mention that Breath of the Wild may be one of the darkest Zelda games yet. How could this be? It seems that Nintendo is trying their absolute best to make sure that every piece of the story, every cutscene, every character related to the story is as emotional and dramatic as possible to immerse you into the game experience. Eiji Aonuma stated that it doesn't matter how you play the game, it's designed to make you cry. There are so many questions I'd love to address in this video, but for now, I'll leave it for later. I'd like to personally thank James Yvonne and Mo Sisterson for doing those narrations for me. It was a great help. But, you know, with less than 10 subscribers to my channel, I'm getting pretty discouraged. So if you'd like to hear more from me, then please subscribe if you haven't already. Coming up later this week, I'll be posting some original artwork of mine on my G+ account, so if you'd like to check it out, I'd be thrilled. Have a blessed week, guys, and I'll see you soon!